Hello, soulmates. Welcome to the Honest Academy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I want to especially thank all those that have subscribed to this channel and keep watching our videos, and those who are just seeing us for the first time. And I hope you're going to subscribe. Welcome to a trouser class. In this class, you're going to learn how to draft a well-fitting pants, a well-fitting trouser, and in the next video, we're going to look at how to sew the trouser. Okay, I hope this is going to be so interesting and um, educative to you. So kindly feel free to subscribe, to watch till the end to get the best part of this video. We will be coming your way next um, time very soon. Let's go back to the table and see how to draft a pant trouser. Welcome, soulmates. So for us to draft our trouser, this is what we need: a plain pattern paper and our marker and our tape rule, and of course we've taken our measurements. So this is a pattern paper. From the edge of this paper I marked 2 inches down because the front and back pattern is going to be on the same paper. So this allowance is for the back um, height. Okay, then from the side here I came in by 2.5 inches. As we go further, you're going to understand why it is like that. So from here you take your the length of your trouser, how much length you want, plus hemming allowance. You can do the hemming allowance when you're transferring to your fabric, but for you not to forget, you can still do it together with here. So here I have 42.5 as the length of my trouser. Okay, so from this top line that I marked here, I'm going to take my crotch depth. Now, taking the crotch depth, I use the sit method: sit on the surface and measure from where your trouser is going to sit to the surface of the the surface where you're sitting. So here I have 9.5. Okay, 9.5. I marked it across. Still my tape being here, I marked the length of my knee. Measure from your waist to where your knee is, and I'm going to be marking that across too. I just want to do this so that I'll get a straight line to mark it across, the same way I marked the knee. Okay, then at the length of my trouser I'm going to mark my ankle. Of course I'm going to use the whole of this, so there's no point marking it across. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is to get my hip depth, and here I'm going to be using 8 inches. Measure from your waist to where your hip is and mark what you have there. I'm marking 8 inches here. It's possible. Okay, let's just leave that. So here I have my hip part and have my crotch depth, and this is the waist line. So the next thing is to mark the circumference of my hip divided by 4. I'm using the hip of 41 divided by 4. I'm going to mark it, and at the crotch line I'm also going to mark my hip divided by 4. Okay, I'm going to connect these two lines together. I've already used pencil, but I just want you to see it clearly. Now this hip divided by 4, I'm just going to use it as a line down to the waistline, but that will serve as our waist circumference. So I just used it to form a block. Now next thing we're going to do is to get our crotch extension. This is our crotch depth, this is our crotch line, and then we're going to have the crotch extension. To get the crotch extension, I'm going to be dividing my hip circumference by 20. This is for the front. Hip circumference divided by 20. So 41 divided by 20 is going to give me 2.5. So from this line of the hip that I marked here, okay, I'm going to be marking 2.5 this way. You can see where it is. So I'm going to do a line to meet it there, right? Now at this hip line, I'm going to go out by 0.25. 0.25. This is to help me connect this crotch line so that it doesn't um, enter into the hip line and become tight there. So from this hip line that I took up here, I'm going to go in by half an inch. This is quite optional, just to help me eliminate some bulge if there's going to be any. So I'm going to connect from this crotch extension to this part and then to the half inch that I came in. The 2.5, 2.05 at the hip is just a guideline. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Once I have it like this, I'm then going to use my marker. I will shift it a bit because the mouth of the marker is quite wide so that it will be on the same line. So this is what I have for the front. Remember, I've not taken my waist circumference. Even though I marked something here, I'm still going to, from this half inch here, take my measurement to backwards to where it stops and then connect it to the hip. So from here now, I'm going to take my waist circumference, and that will be 8.5 because I'm using 34 inches. So this is where it is, and I'm going to be connecting it to the hip line. So to connect from the waist, I measured from here to here to get my waist measurement. You see the way I'm placing my curve to connect to the waistline. So here we have our front and hip and crotch waist. And so to centralize this trouser pattern, I'm going to be dividing this into two. From the crotch extension to this borderline, I'm going to divide it into two, and I'll mark whatever it gives me. And then I'm going to measure it. Here I have 6.3, and I'm going to measure the 6.3 here. And I will equally measure it down. So I'm going to do a straight line using this 6.3, and I'll connect it to the lower part. I'll use my marker to highlight it so that you see it properly. So here I'm going to be marking my knee circumference. Knee circumference is 19, round knee circumference. I'm going to be dividing 19 into 2 for back and front. And here we're dealing with only the front. So I'll be dividing it into 2 again. That is dividing the knee circumference into 4 instead of into 2. I hope that makes sense to you. So 19 divided by 4 is going to give me 4.75. I'm going to be marking the 4.75 here, and I'll mark the remaining one here, this way and this way. Now at my knee, I'm going to be dividing my, sorry, at the ankle, I'm going to be dividing my ankle circumference for one leg into 4. So I connected the knee to the ankle, the knee to the ankle, and I'm going to connect to my crotch area. I'll connect it to this crotch. I'll not leave the crotch and get to the hip. So I want to use a very slight curve. This can pass for a straight line, but I'm using a very slight curve. and this is what we have. So we're also going to connect from here to here, and we don't want to use a very big curve here because the person is not so curvy. You can also use a straight line. Okay, you can see what we have on this pattern. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to go over to this same pattern and draft our back trouser. Now going over to the back, this is what we are going to do. From this hip line, this straight line that is for the hip measurement, we are going to go back in by 1 inch. I'm going to go back in by 1 inch. I'm using a black marker. I don't know if that will make it possible for you to see it clearly. And from this 1 inch, I'm going to measure my hip circumference for the back, which is still hip divided by 4, and that will give us 10 1/4. Okay, so I'm going to connect this line backwards to this line. From here to here, I have my hip circumference. Now at the waistline, I'll follow this straight line and not this ½ inch that I came in. I'll follow the straight line and go in by 2 inches. And I'm going to connect this 1 inch to this 2 inches. And I'm going to raise it up to the top of this paper, to the edge of this paper for the back. So this is how I will do it. Now from this line, I'm going to measure my waist circumference. This time I'm going to be adding the dart intake. So my waist circumference is 8.5 plus 1 inch, that is 9.5. So I'm going to connect this line. Already it is connected, okay? So I'm going to be connecting from here to this point. Now one thing we need to note is that um at this waist line was supposed to go down by 1 inch or ½ inch depending. I'm connecting from here to this line for the back waistline on a straight line. So once this is done, I'm going to be connecting this to this area. I'm not using so much curve. If you have this and it's not curvy like the front part, you don't need to worry. Remember, you still have your darts to hold. So once you hold the darts, it's going to align properly. Okay, so one thing I need us to do on this front part is to go down. This is the line for the front, the one that ½ inch that we came in. So we're going to go down by 1 inch. In some cases, you can just go up here by ½ inch, meaning that you also go up for the back ½ inch and then come down by ½ inch, which is almost the same thing or it's just the same thing. So we're going down from here by 1 inch and then we'll connect it to our waist line. This is happening only for the front. The back is not inclusive. So I'm using the ruler to mark the 1 inch and I'm connecting it to the hip line, to the waistline, which is this. I hope we're making progress. Now the next thing is to get our crotch extension for the back. The line is becoming too much, so I need to take it gradually. Before the crotch extension for the back, let's get the midpoint for our back dart. So the midpoint for our back dart, here I have 9.5. I'm just going to divide it into 2 and mark the point for the back dart. Sorry. I'm going to take this up to meet with the back. So I'm going to measure from here, which is the line for the back. I'm going to measure down 5.5 inches. I'll take half inch on both sides to complete the 1 inch that I added for the dart intake. I'm going to use pencil to do this because the marker has a way of adding allowance to what you already have. So I'm going to be connecting this class is actually detailed, and to think that I've not even mentioned that you need to subscribe and watch to the end, that means I'm just concerned about you learning how to do this and not just about who is subscribing and who is not subscribing, even though that is quite necessary. So if you find this video interesting, give it a thumbs up, share it, like it. Okay, so for the back crotch extension, I'm going to be dividing hip circumference by 10. That is 41 divided by 10. Approximately, I'm going to be using 4.5. Approximately, so you do the calculation and know what you're going to be using. Here I'm using 4.5. Okay, now at this hip, I'm also going to go out by 0.25, and I'm going to be connecting it. You can see that this is quite long, but there's no problem. I'll just connect it this way, and I'm going to be carefully try to put things together. You might not connect at the same time, but then it's going to give leave it this way. So here we have our back crotch extension. So basically this part is okay. We're going over to the knee and the ankle. So at this knee part, whatever it is that we have measured, we're going to be adding 0.5 to all the measurements. So from this line, I'll go out by 0.5, and from here I'll go out by 0.5. The same thing I'm going to do to the ankle. 0.5. So I'm going to be connecting this 0.5 here to this 0.5 here. I'll put them together. And this part I'm going to also put it together. I'm also going to connect this part together to the half inch and to the measurement we have here. And then at this other part, I'm not going to use a curvy line. I'm just going to connect it together. Okay, my black marker is finished, so I'm using the blue marker. And this is what we have for our trouser pattern. Okay, so if you have any question, we're going to be tracing this out in our next video and transferring to our fabric.